The mining ship Starforge drifted slowly through the asteroid field, its metal hull gleaming under the distant starlight. Captain Jake Miller sat in his chair on the bridge, watching the big rocks float past outside the windows. He had been doing this job for 5 years now, and most days felt the same. Find rocks with good metal inside, break them apart, collect the pieces, and move on to the next one. "Jake, we got something weird on the scanner," called Lisa Rodriguez from her seat at the engineering station. She was a smart woman who knew everything about the ship's machines. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she had grease stains on her blue work shirt from fixing things all morning. Jake walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of weird?" "Something small, maybe the size of a car, but it's not moving like a rock. It's spinning too fast and in the wrong direction." Lisa pointed at a green dot on her display. "And it's giving off a weird energy reading." "Danny." Walsh looked up from where he was checking medical supplies in the corner. He was the ship's doctor and medic, a thin man with gentle hands who took care of everyone when they got hurt. "Could be space junk from another ship," he said. Jake rubbed his chin. In 5 years of mining, he had seen all kinds of things floating in space. Old satellite parts, broken pieces from other ships, sometimes even garbage that people threw out where they shouldn't. But something about this felt different. "Bring us closer," Jake told Lisa, "but keep our distance. I want to see what we're dealing with." The Starforge's engines hummed as Lisa changed their course. Through the big front window, they could see the object getting bigger. It was dark gray and shaped like a teardrop, with scratches and burn marks all over its surface. One side looked like it had been hit by something very hard. "That's an escape pod," Danny said, moving closer to the window. "But I've never seen one that looks like that before." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Escape pods meant someone had been in trouble. Someone might still be alive inside, waiting for help. "Can you tell if anyone's in there?" Lisa worked at her controls, sending scanner beams toward the strange pod. "The metal is too thick to see through clearly, but there's something inside, something alive. We have to help them," Danny said right away. "They could be hurt or dying." But Jake knew it wasn't that simple. The company they worked for had very strict rules about finding things in space. If they found anything that wasn't rocks or metal, they were supposed to call the company office right away and wait for orders. They weren't supposed to touch anything or bring anything aboard their ship. The problem was that calling the company office would take hours. The radio signals had to travel a very long way, and then the company people would have to talk about what to do, and then they would send a message back. By that time, whoever was in the pod might be dead. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "the pod's power is almost gone. Whatever's keeping the person inside alive won't last much longer." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the company rules. He thought about his job and how he needed the money to take care of his family back on Earth. But then he thought about someone dying in that cold pod while he did nothing. "Bring the pod into our cargo bay," he said. "Are you sure?" Lisa asked. "You know what the company will say." "I'm sure. We can't just leave someone to die out here." Lisa nodded and started working her controls. Danny went to get his medical equipment ready. Jake watched through the window as the mechanical arms on their ship reached out and grabbed the escape pod. It was smaller than he had thought, maybe just big enough for one person. 20 minutes later, they had the pod inside their cargo bay. Jake, Lisa, and Danny all put on their spacesuits and went down to look at it. The cargo bay was a big empty room where they usually stored the metal they collected from asteroids. The escape pod sat in the middle of the room, still and quiet. Up close, they could see that it was made from some kind of metal they didn't recognize. The scratches and burn marks looked even worse than they had from far away. "How do we open it?" Jake asked. Lisa walked around the pod, looking for buttons or switches. The design is completely different from human escape pods. These symbols on the side, I've never seen writing like this before. Danny knelt down next to a small window on the pod's side. The glass was dark, but he pressed his face close to it and tried to look inside. Suddenly he jumped back. "What is it?" Jake asked. "There's something in there, but it's not human," Danny said. His voice was shaking a little. "It's got fur and scales, and it's about the size of a big dog." Jake and Lisa both looked through the small window. Inside the pod, they could see a creature curled up in a ball. It had gray and silver fur that seemed to shine even in the dim light. Along its back were small scales that looked like tiny mirrors. Its head was shaped like a wolf's, but smaller and more delicate. "It's just a baby," Lisa whispered. "Look how small it is." As they watched, the creature opened its eyes. They were large and bright blue, and they looked directly at the three humans staring through the window. The creature made a small sound, like a whimper, and tried to move away from the window. "It's scared," Danny said, "and probably hurt too." "We have to get it out of there," Lisa said. "That pod won't keep working much longer." Jake knew she was right. But he also knew that once they opened that pod, there would be no going back. They would be breaking every rule the company had about contact with unknown things. They could all lose their jobs, or worse, the creature in the pod made another small sound, and Jake saw that it was shivering. "Do it," he said. "Figure out how to open the pod." Lisa went to work on the pod's control panel while Danny prepared his medical equipment. Jake stood guard, watching the door to make sure no one else came into the cargo bay. After 10 minutes, Lisa found the right combination of buttons to press. The pod made a soft hissing sound, and the top half opened like a clamshell. The smell that came out was strange but not unpleasant, like flowers mixed with metal. The creature inside looked up at them with those big blue eyes, and Jake could see that it was definitely young, maybe the equivalent of a puppy or kitten. "Hello there, little one," Danny said in his gentlest voice. "We're here to help you." But the creature was too scared to trust them. It pressed itself against the back of the pod and made small crying sounds. Jake realized that their lives had just changed forever. They had made first contact with an alien species, and it was just a frightened baby who needed their help. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back now. For the next 3 hours, the small alien creature refused to come out of its escape pod. It stayed curled up in the back corner, watching the three humans with those big blue eyes. Every time one of them moved closer, it would make a soft whimpering sound and try to push itself further back. Danny had set up his medical equipment nearby, but he couldn't examine the creature if it wouldn't let him get close. Jake paced around the cargo bay, worried about what to do next. Lisa sat on the floor a few feet away from the pod, just watching and waiting. "Maybe we're scaring it because we're too big," Lisa said. "When I was little, my family had a dog that was afraid of tall people. My dad had to sit on the ground too." "Make friends with it. It's worth a try," Danny said. He sat down next to Lisa, making himself smaller. Jake joined them on the floor. "What do you think it eats?" he asked. "I ran a quick scan while the pod was opening," Danny said. "Its body chemistry is different from ours, but not completely alien. It might be able to eat some of the same foods we do." The creature's ears moved when they talked, like it was trying to understand their words. Lisa noticed this and started speaking more softly. "Hello, little one," she said. "We want to help you. We're not going to hurt you." The creature tilted its head to one side, still watching her carefully. Lisa remembered her old dog again. "I'm going to try something," she said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a protein bar from her lunch. She tore off a small piece and held it out toward the creature. The alien's nose moved like it was smelling the food. It was clearly hungry, but still too afraid to come closer. Lisa placed the piece of food on the floor and pushed it toward the pod. Then she moved back to give the creature space. They all waited quietly. After several minutes, the creature slowly stretched its neck out of the pod. It sniffed the food carefully, then quickly grabbed it and pulled back into the pod. They could hear small chewing sounds. "Good," Danny whispered. "At least we know it can eat our food." Over the next hour, Lisa repeated this process several times. Each time, the creature came out a little further from the pod. Its fur was beautiful up close, gray and silver that seemed to change color in the light. The scales on its back were tiny and perfect, like pieces of jewelry. "It's definitely young," Danny said quietly. "Look at its teeth. They're still small and sharp, like a puppy's." "What should we call it?" Lisa asked. Jake thought for a moment. "How about Comet? Because of the way its fur shines." As if it understood, the creature looked directly at Jake when he said the name. Its tail, which had been hidden before, came out from under its body. It was long and fluffy, with silver scales running down the middle. "I think it likes that name," Lisa said, smiling. By the 4th hour, Comet was sitting at the edge of the pod, still inside, but no longer hiding. It would take food directly from Lisa's hand now, though it was still nervous around Jake and Danny. "Why does it trust you more than us?" Jake asked Lisa. "Maybe because I'm smaller or my voice is higher," Lisa said. "Or maybe it can tell that. I've taken care of animals before." Danny slowly moved his medical scanner closer to Comet. The creature watched him but didn't run away. "This is interesting," Danny said, looking at his readings. "Its body temperature is lower than ours, but its heart is beating very fast. It's scared, but it's also curious about us." "Look at its eyes," Lisa said. "They're so intelligent. It's studying us just like we're studying it." She was right. Comet was watching everything they did with great attention. When Jake moved to check something on his communication device, Comet's head followed the movement. When Danny made notes on his medical pad, Comet tried to see what he was writing. "We need to make a decision about what to tell the company," Jake said. He had been putting off this problem for hours, but he couldn't avoid it forever. "What if we don't tell them anything yet?" Lisa suggested. "We could say we found some unusual metal samples that need more study. That would buy us some time." "Time for what?" Jake asked. "Time to figure out where Comet came from. Time to see if there are others like it that need help. Time to learn more about it before we turn it over to company scientists who might not care about its feelings." Danny nodded. "Lisa's right. The company will want to study Comet like it's just a thing, not a living being with emotions. We can see that it's intelligent and sensitive. It deserves better than that." Jake looked at Comet, who was now sitting completely outside the pod. The creature was still small enough to fit in his arms, and it looked so young and vulnerable. "The company expects us to report back every 24 hours, Jake said. "Our next check-in is in 6 hours. Then we have 6 hours to learn as much as we can," Lisa said. She turned back to Comet and held out another piece of food. This time, instead of just taking it, Comet made a soft sound. It wasn't scared anymore. It sounded almost like it was trying to say thank you. "Did you hear that?" Danny asked. "It's trying to communicate with us." Lisa made a gentle sound back, trying to copy what Comet had done. Comet's ears perked up, and it made the sound again, louder this time. "It's learning," Jake said, amazed. "It's actually trying to talk to us." For the next hour, they played this game with Comet. Lisa would make a sound, and Comet would try to copy it. Then Comet would make a sound, and Lisa would try to copy that. It was like watching a baby learn to speak, except this baby was from another world. Danny was able to do a full medical scan, while Comet was distracted by the sound game. "It's in good health," he reported. "A little underweight and dehydrated, but nothing serious. However, there are some old injuries that have healed. Burn marks and cuts that suggest it was in some kind of accident." "The same accident that damaged its pod?" Jake asked. "Probably. And if Comet was in an accident, There might have been other pods. There might be other survivors. Lisa looked up from playing with Comet. We have to look for them. That would mean extending our mission, Jake said. Staying in this area longer than planned. Using company fuel and resources for something that's not mining. But we can't just leave if there are others out there who need help, Danny said. What if Comet's family is floating in damaged pods somewhere, running out of air? Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every decision he made could affect not just his own career, but the lives of his crew and potentially the lives of other creatures like Comet. Comet seemed to sense the tension in the room. It made a soft questioning sound and looked at each of the humans in turn. Then it did something none of them expected. It walked over to Jake and gently touched his leg with its small paw. Jake looked down at those big blue eyes and saw something that made his decision for him. He saw trust, hope, and a plea for help that crossed all the barriers between species. We're going to search for other survivors, he said, and we're going to find them. Comet made a happy sound and wagged its tail, as if it understood exactly what Jake had promised. The next morning, Jake made the call to company headquarters. He sat in his captain's chair, looking at the communication screen while his supervisor's face stared back at him from millions of miles away. Miller, your report says you found unusual metal samples that need extended study, said Supervisor Williams. He was a thin man with gray hair who always looked angry. What kind of samples? Unknown alloy composition, sir, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. We think it might be worth significant money, but we need more time to analyze it properly. How much more time? Maybe a week. The readings are very promising. Williams frowned. A week means extra fuel costs, extra food, extra pay for your crew. This better be worth it, Miller. I believe it will be, sir. Fine, you have 1 week. But if these samples turn out to be worthless, it's coming out of your pay bonus. The screen went dark. Jake let out a long breath. They had bought themselves time, but now they really did need to find something valuable to justify the lie-down in the cargo bay. Lisa and Danny were working with Comet. The little alien had grown much braver overnight. It was now following Lisa around the ship, staying close to her legs like a loyal dog. Any luck with the scanner modifications? Jake asked Lisa. I think so. I've been studying the metal from Comet's pod, and it gives off a very specific energy pattern. I've adjusted our long-range scanners to look for that same pattern. Danny was feeding Comet small pieces of fruit from their food supplies. It definitely prefers sweet things, he said. And watch this. Danny pointed to a tool on his medical table and said, Bring me that scanner, Comet. Comet looked at the tool, then at Danny, then walked over and carefully picked up the scanner in its mouth. It brought it back to Danny and set it down gently. Amazing, Jake said. How long has it been doing that? Since this morning, Lisa said. It learns incredibly fast. I think it understands more of our language than we realize. Jake knelt down next to Comet. Can you show us where your family is? He asked. Comet's expression changed immediately. Its ears dropped and it made a sad whimpering sound. Then it ran to the front window of the cargo bay and pressed its face against the glass, looking out at the asteroid field. It knows they're out there somewhere, Danny said quietly. Lisa activated the modified scanner system. I'm picking up 3 possible matches in this sector, she said. But they're spread far apart, and 2 of them are very weak signals. How weak? Jake asked. If those are escape pods, their power systems are almost gone. Jake made his decision quickly. Plot a course to the strongest signal first. If we find survivors there, maybe they can help us locate the others. The Starforge changed course and began moving toward the first signal. Comet seemed to understand what was happening. It stayed by the window, watching the asteroids carefully as they passed by. It took them 4 hours to reach the location. What they found made them all feel sick to their stomachs. Floating between two large asteroids was the wreckage of a ship. It was huge, much bigger than their mining vessel, but it was broken into hundreds of pieces. Some parts were still burning, with strange blue flames that seemed to burn without air. That was a passenger ship, Danny said, studying the wreckage through the window. Look at the size of those hull sections. It could have carried hundreds of people. Or hundreds of beings like Comet, Lisa added. Comet saw the wreckage and made a sound unlike anything they had heard before. It was a cry of grief so deep and painful that all three humans felt tears in their eyes. We're too late, Jake said. No one could have survived that destruction. But Lisa was studying her scanner readings. Wait, I'm still getting energy signatures from some of the debris. Not from escape pods, but from something else. They spent the next 6 hours carefully moving through the wreckage field. What they found told a terrible story. The ship had suffered a massive engine failure. The explosion had torn it apart in seconds, but there had been time for some escape pods to launch. I count launch marks for at least 12 escape pods, Lisa reported, but most of them were damaged during the launch. Only a few would have been able to fly away from the explosion. Where would they go? Jake asked. Danny had been studying the wreckage's flight path. If I was in a damaged escape pod, I would try to reach those larger asteroids, he said, pointing to a cluster of rocks about an hour away. They would provide protection from radiation and debris. Comet suddenly became very excited. It ran to Jake and grabbed his sleeve with its teeth, then pulled him toward the ship's control station. When Jake sat down, Comet jumped into his lap and started making urgent sounds while pointing toward the asteroid cluster. I think it's trying to tell us something, Lisa said. Comet continued making sounds, but now Jake noticed a pattern. The sounds were rising and falling in a regular rhythm, almost like music. Danny, are you recording this? Jake asked. Already on it, Danny said, holding up his device. Comet repeated the pattern 3 times, then looked at them expectantly. It's some kind of signal, Lisa realized. Maybe a distress call or a location marker. Can we broadcast it? Jake asked. Lisa worked at her controls. Broadcasting now on multiple frequencies. They waited. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then their communication system picked up a response. It was the same musical pattern, but much weaker. There, Danny said, checking his instruments. The signal is coming from that cluster of asteroids, just like we thought. But when they reached the asteroid cluster and began searching, they found nothing. The rocks were too close together for their ship to navigate safely, and the signal kept moving. It's not coming from the surface of the asteroids, Lisa said. It's coming from inside them. Inside? Jake asked. Some of these asteroids are hollow or have large caves. If an escape pod crashed into one of those spaces, it could be completely hidden from our external scanners. The search became even more difficult. They had to use their ship's mechanical arms to move smaller rocks and clear paths between the larger ones. It was dangerous work that required all of Jake's piloting skills. Comet stayed with them on the bridge, continuing to make its musical sounds. Each time they broadcast the pattern, they got responses from 2 different directions. 2 more survivors, Danny said. At least 2. After 12 hours of careful searching, they found the first pod. It was wedged deep in a cave inside a large asteroid. The cave was so narrow that they couldn't fit their ship inside, but they could see the pod with their lights. The pod is intact, but its power is almost gone, Lisa reported. If there's someone inside, they don't have much time left. How do we get it out? Jake asked. We'll have to use the mechanical arms, but it will take hours to clear a path wide. Enough. Then we better get started, Jake said, as they began the difficult rescue work. Jake thought about Supervisor Williams and the lie he had told about valuable metal samples. If they were caught saving alien lives instead of mining, they would all lose their jobs. But watching Comet pace nervously by the window, clearly worried about its family, Jake knew they were doing the right thing. Some things were more important than jobs or money or company rules. Some things, like helping someone in need, were what made humans truly human. The rescue of the first escape pod took 18 hours of dangerous work. Jake had to pilot the Starforge through spaces barely wider than their ship, while Lisa operated the mechanical arms to move rocks that weighed thousands of pounds. One wrong move could have crushed the pod or damaged their own ship beyond repair. Danny worked without sleep, monitoring the life signs from inside the pod. "Whoever is in there is alive, but barely," he reported. "Their life support system failed. 6 hours ago. They're running out of breathable air." Comet stayed on the bridge the entire time, making its musical sounds every few minutes. Each time it called out, they heard weak responses from the pod they were trying to reach, and from somewhere else in the asteroid field. "There's definitely a second survivor," Lisa said during one of their brief rest breaks. "But the signal is getting weaker. We need to hurry." When they finally pulled the first pod free from the asteroid cave, it looked much worse than Comet's had. The metal surface was cracked in several places, and strange alien writing was burned into one side. "Get it into the cargo bay quickly," Danny said. "I don't think it has much time left." Once the pod was safely inside their ship, they gathered around it just like they had with Comet's pod 3 days earlier. But this pod was different. It was larger, clearly made for an adult, and the control panel was completely destroyed. "How do we open it?" Jake asked. Lisa examined the damage. "The electronic systems are dead. We'll have to cut it open manually." "Will that hurt whoever is inside?" Danny asked. "It's the only way to save them." Lisa used a laser cutting tool to carefully slice through the metal. As soon as she made the first cut, they could smell the same flower metal scent that had come from Comet's pod, but now it was mixed with something that smelled like fear and sickness. When they finally got the pod open, they found an adult version of Comet inside. It was about the size of a large dog, with the same beautiful gray and silver fur, but its scales were darker and larger. Its eyes were closed, and it was breathing very slowly. "It's unconscious," Danny said, immediately beginning his medical examination. "Dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from oxygen deprivation, but alive." Comet ran to the edge of the pod and made urgent sounds. The adult creature's eyes opened slightly, and when it saw Comet, it made a weak sound in response. "They know each other," Lisa said. "Maybe it's Comet's parent." Danny worked quickly to stabilize the adult alien. He gave it water through a small tube and used an oxygen mask to help it breathe better. Within an hour, the creature was sitting up, though still very weak. The reunion between Comet and the adult was beautiful to watch. They touched noses and made soft musical sounds to each other. The adult creature examined Comet carefully, as if making sure the young one hadn't been hurt. "That's definitely a parent checking on its child," Jake said, but their celebration was interrupted by an urgent beeping from the communication system. Jake's face went pale when he saw the display. "What is it?" Lisa asked. "Message from company headquarters. Supervisor Williams wants a full report on our progress immediately." Danny looked up from where he was still treating the adult alien. "What are you going to tell him?" "I don't know," Jake said. "We've been out here for 4 days, and we have nothing to show for it except 2 alien creatures. And one more still out there," Lisa reminded him. "The second signal is getting weaker. If we don't find that pod soon, whoever is inside will." Jake stared at the communication system. He could make the call to Williams and try to buy more time with more lies. Or he could tell the truth and face the consequences. Either way, he was risking his career and the careers of his crew. The adult alien made a sound that drew their attention. It was pointing at the communication device with one paw while making the same musical pattern that Comet had been using. It Wants to help, Danny realized. It knows we're trying to contact someone. Lisa had an idea. What if we let them try to contact the other survivor directly? Maybe they can communicate better than our equipment can. They helped the adult alien to the bridge, where it could see the asteroid field through the big windows. Comet stayed close to its side, offering support. The adult alien looked out at the rocks and began making a complex series of musical sounds. The pattern was much more sophisticated than anything Comet had done, with layers of harmony and rhythm that sounded almost like a song. "I'm recording this," Danny said. "And I'm amplifying the signal through our communication array," Lisa added. They broadcast the alien song across the asteroid field and waited. For 5 minutes, there was no response. Then their speakers crackled to life with a reply. It was the same song, but sung in a different voice and much weaker. There, the adult alien made excited sounds and pointed toward a cluster of asteroids on the far side of the field. "That's at least 8 hours away," Lisa said, studying the scanner readings. Jake looked at the time display. In 6 hours, Supervisor Williams would be expecting his report. If they went after the third survivor, there would be no way to make the scheduled communication. The adult alien seemed to understand their hesitation. It made gentle sounds and touched Jake's arm with its paw, the same way Comet had done when asking for help. Both aliens looked at the 3 humans with hope and trust in their eyes. They were asking the humans to risk everything to save their family member. Jake thought about his job, his career, his future. Then he thought about the choice between safety and doing what was right. "Set course for those asteroids," he told Lisa. "We're going after the third survivor. What about Williams?" Danny asked. "Let him wait. Some things are more important than company schedules." The adult alien and Comet both made happy sounds, as if they understood exactly what Jake had decided. As the Starforge began moving toward the distant asteroids, Jake sat in his captain's chair and prepared for whatever consequences would come. He had made his choice, and he would stand by it. But just as they were gaining speed, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Jake," Lisa called from her station, "we have a problem. Company security ship just dropped out of hyperspace. They're heading straight for us." Through the front window, Jake could see the sleek shape of a corporate security vessel approaching fast. These ships were sent when the company suspected their crews of breaking regulations. "They're going to want to search our ship," Danny said. Jake looked at the 2 aliens on his bridge, then at the distant asteroids where the third survivor was waiting for rescue. "Then we better find that last pod before they get here," he said. The journey to the dangerous asteroid zone took 6 hours of careful flying. Jake had to navigate around energy discharges that could have fried their ship's electronics. The strange blue lights were getting stronger, and now they could see dark ships moving between the asteroids. "Those aren't company ships," Lisa said, studying the scanner readings. "The design is completely different, and they're armed with weapons I've never seen before." The adult alien, who they had started calling Echo because of the way it repeated Comet sounds, watched the enemy ships with obvious fear. It made urgent warning sounds and pointed at the weapons. "It's trying to tell us those ships are dangerous," Danny said. "We already figured that out," Jake replied. Steering around another energy blast. They found the final escape pod hidden deep inside a hollow asteroid, just like the first one had been. But this rescue was much more dangerous. The enemy ships were searching the same area, and they were getting closer. "The pod's power is almost gone," Danny reported. "Whoever is inside has maybe an hour of air left. Can we reach it before those ships find us?" Jake asked. Lisa worked frantically at her controls. "Maybe, but we'll have to move fast and we can't use our big lights or they'll see us." The rescue became a race against time. Jake used only the ship's smallest lights to see where they were going. Lisa operated the mechanical arms by touch as much as by sight. Danny prepared his medical equipment for another critical patient. "Echo," and Comet helped by making their musical sounds. The third survivor responded weakly, helping guide them to the exact location of the pod. They were just pulling the pod free when one of the enemy ships spotted them. "They're coming this way," Lisa warned. "And they're charging their weapons." Jake made a desperate decision. "Get that pod inside now. I don't care if we damage it." They hauled the escape pod into their cargo bay just as the first energy blasts hit their ship. The Starforge shook violently, and alarms started ringing everywhere. "Hull damage on the rear section," Lisa reported. "But we're still flying." The third escape pod was in even worse condition than the others. When they cut it open, they found another adult alien inside, unconscious and barely breathing. "It's alive, but just barely," Danny said, immediately starting emergency treatment. Echo made excited sounds when it saw the third survivor. The two adult aliens touched noses briefly before Echo helped Danny with the medical care. "Are they mates?" Lisa asked, watching the way Echo was so gentle with the unconscious alien. "I think so," Danny said. "Look how protective Echo is being." More energy blasts hit their ship. Jake was flying as fast as he could, but the enemy ships were faster and better armed. "We can't outrun them," Jake said, "and we can't fight them." That's when something unexpected happened. Echo began making a completely different kind of sound. It wasn't musical like before. It was sharp and commanding, like a military order. The enemy ships suddenly stopped firing. "What just happened?" Lisa asked. Echo continued making the commanding sounds, and to everyone's amazement, the enemy ships began backing away. Echo is talking to them, Danny realized. It's giving them orders. Through the front window, they could see one of the enemy ships opening a communication channel. A holographic image appeared on their bridge, showing a creature that looked like Echo and Comet, but wearing some kind of military uniform. The alien in the hologram and Echo had a rapid conversation in their musical language. Sometimes the conversation sounded angry, sometimes sad. Finally, the military alien made what sounded like an apology and ordered its ships to retreat. What was that about? Jake asked. Echo tried to explain using gestures and simple sounds. It pointed to itself, then to the unconscious alien, then to Comet. Then it made commanding gestures like a leader giving orders. "I think Echo is someone important," Lisa said. "Like a leader or a royal family member. And those ships were looking for them, not to hurt them, but to rescue them," Danny added. The third survivor began to wake up. When it saw Echo and Comet, it made weak but happy sounds. The family was finally together again, but their celebration was interrupted by another communication from their own company. This time, it wasn't Supervisor Williams. It was someone much more important. "This is Admiral Jackson of the Colonial." "Space Command," said the woman on the screen. "Captain Miller, we need to talk." Jake felt confused. The Colonial Space Command was the military, not the mining company. "Ma'am, I think you have the wrong ship," Jake said. "No, Captain. We've been monitoring your rescue operations. We know about the alien family you've saved." Jake's heart sank. They were caught, but Admiral Jackson surprised him. "Captain Miller, you and your crew have just made first contact with the Zephyrian royal family. Echo, as you call them, is Prince Kira of the Zephyrian Empire. They've been searching for their missing family for weeks." Jake looked at Echo, who was now standing straighter and looking very dignified despite its injuries. "The Zephyrian Empire has been watching humanity for some time," Admiral Jackson continued. "They wanted to test whether we were worthy of joining the Galactic Federation. Your actions have provided that test." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "You risked your careers, your ship, and your lives to save strangers. You showed compassion to beings who couldn't repay you. You chose to do what was right instead of what was profitable." Echo made approving sounds and touched Jake's shoulder gently. "The Galactic Federation has been waiting for humanity to prove We're ready for contact, Admiral Jackson explained. Prince Kira will be recommending us for membership. What about our jobs? Lisa asked. The company is sending security to arrest us. Admiral Jackson smiled. Don't worry about the company. As of today, you three are the first members of humanity's new diplomatic contact division. Your job will be to help other humans learn to work with alien species. Danny looked around at their alien friends. Does this mean we get to keep working with Echo, Comet, and their family? If you want to, Admiral Jackson said. Prince Kira has specifically requested that you three become the human ambassadors to the Zephyrian Empire. Comet ran over to Jake and made happy sounds, as if it understood everything that had been said. 6 months later, Jake, Lisa, and Danny were living on the Zephyrian homeworld, learning about alien technology and helping to plan humanity's integration into the galactic community. Comet had grown bigger and was learning to speak human languages, though it still preferred its musical sounds. The mining ship, Starforge, had been converted into humanity's first diplomatic vessel. Where once they had searched for valuable metals, now they searched for new alien species to befriend. Jake often thought about the choice he had made that first day, when they found a scared alien puppy in a damaged escape pod. He had chosen compassion over company rules, and that choice had changed the destiny of the entire human race. Sometimes, the most important decisions were also the simplest ones. When someone needed help, you helped them. It didn't matter what species they were or where they came from. That was what made humans special. That was what made them worthy of the stars.